Pick up that trash faster, old man. This isn't your retirement home. He didn't respond. He just kept sweeping the sidewalk outside the army base gate, moving with the quiet rhythm of someone used to being ignored. The young soldier laughed with his friends, tossing another wrapper on the ground. Then the base doors opened. A 4-star general stepped out mid-sentence, but when his eyes landed on the janitor, he froze. His mouth hung open. Silence fell. Subscribe if you believe honor isn't measured by rank but by sacrifice. Dawn breaks over Camp Redstone military base. The first hints of sunlight catch on the American flag as it's raised for the day. Most of the base still sleeps, but Howard McRae is already at work at 76. Howard moves deliberately. Each sweep of his broom marks time like a metronome. Consistent, reliable, resolute. His gray beard neatly trimmed, despite its wildness. Frames of face weathered by years rarely spoken about. His maintenance uniform, though faded from countless washes, remains impeccably clean. Howard doesn't speak much. Some newer staff wonder if he can speak at all. The older personnel just say he's always been that way. A fixture at the base entrance like the guard booth or the flagpole 2 years ago. Howard lost Eleanor, his wife of 51 years. The silence in their small house became unbearable. So he took this job not for the meager paycheck but for purpose. For somewhere to be when the morning parking feels too heavy. "Morning, Mr. McRae," nods Sergeant Caldwell, one of the few who consistently acknowledges him. Howard responds with a slight nod, continuing his methodical sweeping. By his 700, the base bustles with activity. Young soldiers stream through the gates, most passing Howard as if he were invisible. Some offer cursory nods. A very few, see fit to entertain themselves at his expense. "Hey, look who's still alive." Private Nolan voice cuts through the morning air. He's flanked by 2 other recruits, all smirking. "Thought maybe you'd finally retired to the cemetery, old-timer." Howard doesn't look up, doesn't pause, just sweeps. "You going for a speed record with that broom?" "My grandma moves faster and she's dead." Jenkins laughs at his own joke, encouraged by his companion's snickers. Still, Howard works. His weathered hands grip the broom handle with the same steadiness they've held for decades. "Hey Dusty, I'm talking to you." Jenkins steps closer, deliberately scuffing his boots across Howard's freshly swept section. "They keep you around as a mascot or something?" Too slow for real work. Jenkins reaches into his pocket, unwraps a protein bar, and deliberately drops the wrapper at Howard's feet. "Oops," he says with exaggerated concern. "Looks like you missed a spot, an old broomstick." Howard pauses, then slowly bends to retrieve the wrapper. As he does, his worn maintenance jacket shifts slightly, sewn discreetly inside his sleeve, barely visible as a faded military patch. The morning sunlight catches on its threads for just a moment. A flash of red and black of history and sacrifice. Jenkins notices it, squints curiously but dismisses it with a shrug. "Man, they'll give anyone a uniform these days," he mutters, walking away. "Even fossils." Howard tucks the wrapper into his pocket and resumes sweeping, his eyes briefly following the young soldier before returning to the ground before him. His expression never changes. Master Sergeant Whitaker has been at Camp Redstone for 23 years. He notices things others don't. It's why he survived this long. And right now he's noticing that patch on Howard's sleeve. "Hold up," he says, approaching Howard after Jenkins and his friends have moved on. "Where'd you get that patch, sir?" Howard glances up briefly. "Earned it a long time ago." Davis studies Howard's face, then the patch again. His posture straightens almost imperceptibly. 5th Ranger Battalion, Vietnam. Howard doesn't confirm or deny. He just continues sweeping. Davis watches him for another moment, then turns and walks briskly toward the administration building, phone already in hand. By mid-morning, whispers spread through the base like wildfire. Staff sergeants conferring corners. A lieutenant pulls up old records on a computer terminal, eyes widening as he scrolls. An aging colonel stares out his office window, watching Howard work. "You're sure it's him?" the colonel asks without turning. "Records match service number DOB. Physical description." The lieutenant responds. "It's Howard McRae, sir, 5th Battalion, MIA, in 71. Recovered 6 months later, Silver Star, Purple Heart, distinguished service." The colonel nods slowly. "Get Barrett, now." Inside the main auditorium, General Nolan Barrett is addressing new recruits about the meaning of valor. At 68, Barrett commands attention, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of service and sacrifice. "True valor isn't measured by medals," he tells the silent hall. "It's measured by the moments no one sees when fear is strongest and duty calls anyway." The auditorium door is open. An aide whispers something to Barrett, whose expression shifts from annoyance to disbelief. Where he demands front entrance, sir, maintenance staff. Barrett doesn't dismiss the recruits, doesn't finish his sentence. He walks straight to the exit, still speaking as he pushes through the doors. When you stand for something greater than, and then he stops, dead still. Howard is emptying a trash can. His back is to the general, but Barrett recognizes him instantly. Decades fall away in that moment. He's suddenly a terrified lieutenant again, pinned down in jungle darkness, certain he's about to die. Barrett approaches slowly, his footsteps deliberate on the pavement. The entire courtyard seems to freeze, conversations dying mid-sentence. As personnel notice the general's focused intensity, Howard turns trash bag in hand and meets Barrett's gaze. "Sir," Barrett's voice wavers slightly. "Is that Howard McRae?" Howard studies him for a moment, then simply nod. Without hesitation, General Barrett snaps to a perfect salute. Crisp, formal, the kind reserved for heads of state and fallen heroes. The entire courtyard falls silent. Private Nolan, returning from morning PT, drops his water bottle. It clatters across the pavement, the only sound in the stunned silence. "That's the McRae," someone whispers. "The ghost of Cam ran." Barrett holds his salute until Howard, after a moment's hesitation, returns it. His form perfect despite the decades since he last stood at attention. The general lowers his hand and steps forward, placing it firmly on Howard's shoulder. His voice, when he speaks, carries across the now silent courtyard. "The man who saved my unit in '71, he says in motion, tightening his throat. "I owe you my life, Sergeant McRae." Howard's eyes, usually so impassive, flicker with something long buried. Recognition perhaps, or the ghost of pride. "Just did what needed doing, sir," he says quietly. Barrett shakes his head. 22 men came home because of what you did, myself included." He turns to face the gathered personnel, his hand still on Howard's shoulder. "This man walked into enemy territory alone after our extraction was compromised, created a diversion that allowed our wounded to evacuate, was captured and held for 6 months. He looks back at Howard, his gaze intense. "We thought you were dead." Howard's response is barely audible. "Sometimes I was." Across the courtyard, faces reflect dawning recognition. Even Jenkins stands transfixed, his earlier mockery now a burning shame in his chest. Barrett straightens his general's authority. "Return, Master Sergeant. See that Sergeant McRae is properly accommodated and find his service records, all of them." As Howard is led away, a ripple of respect follows him. Soldiers stand aside, some nodding acknowledgement, others watching in quiet awe. If this moment moved, you share the story, because real heroes often go unseen. By afternoon, Camp Redstone is transformed. Archived photos are retrieved from storage, dusted off and displayed in the administration building lobby. In one, a young Howard McRae stands with his unit, his expression serious, but his eyes alive with purpose. In another, he receives the Silver Star, his uniform immaculate despite the bandages visible beneath it. He was presumed dead for 6 months. Lieutenant Hayes explains to a group of fascinated junior officers. When they found him in that POW camp, he'd lost 60 pounds but somehow kept 3 other prisoners alive by sharing his rations. The photos draw crowds. Stories emerge from older personnel who'd heard the legends, but never connected them to the quiet janitor who swept their walkways. General Barrett arranges for a ceremony, immediate non-negotiable. "Sir, with all due respect, I don't need any fuss," Howard says when informed, his voice stronger now, as if long dormant parts of himself are awakening. "I didn't do it for medals. This isn't about medals, McRae." Barrett replies, "It's about setting things right." The next morning, Howard arrives to find the base assembled in formal formation. As he approaches the gate, the guard, the same one who'd barely acknowledged him for years, sends and salutes. "They're waiting for you, Sergeant," the guard says with newfound respect. Howard is escorted to the central parade ground, where personnel stand at attention. At the front, General Barrett waits beside a draped object near the flagpole, and there in the front row stands Private Nolan. When their eyes meet, Jenkins is the first to salute, crisp proper, his face solemn with the weight of humbled understanding. Howard returns the salute, then follows his escort to the seat of honor prepared for him. "Attention to orders," Barrett commands, and the base falls silent. "Today, we recognize not just heroism from decades past, but the quiet dignity that has walked among us unnoticed." Barrett begins. "Sergeant Howard McRae served this country with distinction during the Vietnam conflict. His actions above and beyond the call of duty saved 22 American lives, including my own." Barrett gestures and 2 officers remove the covering from the object beside him, revealing a polished bronze plaque mounted on a stone pedestal. "Sergeant Howard McRae, valor never forgot." Barrett reads, "This plaque will remind all who enter Camp Redstone that heroism doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it quietly sweeps our paths." After the ceremony, Private Nolan approaches Howard, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine contrition. Sergeant McRae, he begins, his voice unsteady. I want to apologize for my behavior. I was wrong in how I treated you. Howard studies the young soldier, seeing past the uniform to the uncertainty beneath it. We all make mistakes, son, he says finally. Just respect the uniform, all of them. The one you're wearing now and the ones worn by every person who serves this base, whatever their job. Jenkins nods, blinking rapidly. I won't forget, sir. Over the following days, Howard notices the changes. Soldiers who once walked past him now stop to chat. Maintenance staff, who barely acknowledge him, now invite him to lunch. His simple job somehow transmuted into something honored. Base personnel begin leaving small tokens by his cleaning cart. Challenge coins, notes of thanks, once even a silver star pin, identical to the one he'd received decades ago. General Barrett visits him frequently, sometimes just to sit in companionable silence as Howard works. You know, Barrett says during one such visit, the men still talk about you, about what you did that night. Howard continues polishing the memorial plaque, a task he's quietly claimed as his own. Long time ago, he murmurs. Not to me. Barrett responds. Not a day goes by. I don't remember. Howard pauses, rag in hand. You've done well, Lieutenant. He uses Barrett's old rank deliberately, a rare smile touching his lips. Proud to see it. Barrett clears his throat against sudden emotion. All because you gave us the chance, Sarge. A week later, Howard doesn't arrive for his morning shift. Instead, a letter is found on the newly installed bench bearing his name. Beside it, his maintenance jacket and broom are folded with military precision. The letter is brief. Time for quiet waters now. Thank you for remembering. General Barrett understands immediately. He makes no effort to bring Howard back, though he ensures his full military pension is reinstated with back pay, paperwork that had somehow been lost decades ago. Howard's absence creates a presence of its own. The story of the day the general froze becomes part of Camp Redstone's unofficial history, told to each new group of recruits. If you see an old man sweeping, staff sergeants tell their charges, look twice. Heroes don't always wear their medals. The bronze plaque becomes a touchstone. Before difficult missions, soldiers stop to place a hand on it briefly. During basic training, challenges instructors invoke McRae name. When recruits claim they can't go on, McRae survives 6 months in a cage, smaller than your footlocker. They say you can survive 5 more miles. 3 months after Howard's departure, Camp Redstone receives a package from a small lakeside town 200 miles north. Inside is a framed photograph of Howard sitting on a dock, fishing rod in hand, the setting sun gilding the water behind him. His expression is peaceful, more so than anyone at the base had ever seen. The photo finds a home beside his plaque. Private Nolan, now Specialist Jenkins, stops by it often. He's established an unofficial tradition of ensuring the area around the memorial is immaculate, a task he performs with the same quiet diligence he once mocked. When asked why, he simply says, some debts can't be repaid, but they can be honored. In the small lakeside cabin, Howard rises each dawn out of decades-old habit. He no longer sweeps walkways or empties trash. Instead, he watches sunrise paint the water, remembering faces long gone. His unit is Eleanor, the young men who never came home. Sometimes he thinks about Camp Redstone, about the recognition that came so late in life, not with bitterness, but with a sense of things completing their circle. His fishing pole stands ready by the door. His silver star rests in a drawer, rarely viewed but never forgot. His days pass in the quiet contentment of a man who has carried his burdens long enough, and finally set them down. His name is never shouted here, but it's remembered, in silence, in respect, in the enduring power of honor, recognized. Subscribe to Steel Heart Story if you believe true honor doesn't rue.